we're going to be joined by Julio Prieto, who is going to tell us about the situation of, well, what's going on in Brazil. They're canceling free speech, they're canceling Twitter, they're trying to shut down all opposing opinions. And Julio, I believe you're with us now. Thank you for joining us. How are you? Oh, can you hear me?
Yes, I do.
So is it Julio or Julio?
Julio is fine. Julio is fine.
Okay, okay. So Julio, tell me, what is the current situation in Brazil? First of all, who are in government? And second of all, what have they done?
So, Calvin, it is not for the government to determine the opinions of the people. And the big picture here in Brazil is that we have a Supreme Court since 2019 has been censoring views it dislikes. They censor conservative views, mainly on social media. These views are of pro-life people, pro-family opinions, conservative opinions, and in general, anyone who expresses any opinion that the court does not like.
That sounds like tyranny. I mean,
It
is it a
does.
democratically elected government?
It's a democratic government. It's one of the biggest democracies in the West. It's a country of 250 million people, and there's a trend of global censorship that's attacking Brazil and every other country in the West that we know. But the situation in Brazil is the worst in the West as far as we see it.
And so people will be familiar with the story, but if you can run us through it, essentially, the Brazilian Supreme Court wanted to impose some sanctions on Twitter, on X, and Elon Musk refused. He took himself and his company and his representatives out of Brazil, and then Brazil just outright banned Twitter. What was the situation around that?
Correct. That's the last escalation point. On August 30th this year, the Supreme Court, not only because before this, the court was asking social media and is still asking social media, Meta, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, X, to block certain accounts that they didn't like. Elon Musk said he was not going to comply because those orders were of dubious legal foundation. So he said, we're not going to comply. And then the court outrightly banned Twitter all across the country. It imposed fines of $9,000, I think it's like 7,000 pounds, to
Wow.
any Brazilian who wants to use Twitter through a VPN. And since then, like 20 million users of Twitter in Brazil have been silenced. Interestingly enough, the court, when they blocked Twitter, they say they didn't want Twitter to negatively influence the electorate in the upcoming elections in this Sunday, October 6th. So the court, what they're doing is they just want to prevent misinformation, quote unquote. That's not defined, it's a vague word, because they don't want certain people from the electorate to use Twitter as a way to express their opinions, conservative opinions, general opinions, political opinions, whichever opinion they have. And this is just outrageous. This is just egregious.
And I think it's important for people to recognize that this isn't just something that happens in Brazil, because we saw this in America. We saw this when Donald Trump was banned from Twitter. We've seen this when high-profile conservatives have been removed from Twitter in the past, and Facebook and other platforms, because the US government had direct links. And we found this out in the Twitter files, which Michael Shellenberger released, and he showed us, and Matt Taibbi showed us that the US government and the three-letter acronyms agencies, they had direct links with social media networks, and they were able to silence voices that the government did not want out. But the reason this is so important in Brazil in particular is because it means that they've succeeded. If Twitter have said no, if Elon has said no, we're not going to do this, and he's been banned, Twitter has been banned from Brazil, can we not infer from that Facebook, Meta, Instagram, Facebook, etc., TikTok, Snapchat, can we not infer that they are going ahead with banning people that the government doesn't want to have voices?
Correct. They are complying with the orders. And that's how we know, because Michael Shellenberger released the Twitter files. He also released Twitter files Brazil. And that's why he's now being persecuted. So the interesting thing here is the Supreme Court is persecuting criminally journalists, influencers, politicians, media people, citizens for expressing their views. Michael Shellenberger is one of those. And the court expressly said that they didn't, in the last ban of Twitter, that they did not want for what happened in the US in 2016 when Donald Trump was elected, or the Brexit, to happen in Brazil. And that's why they don't want hate campaigns, quote unquote, in the digital age to favor extremist populist groups. That's a definition they have. And it's outrageous, it's incredible. And as you said it before, we are concerned not just for Brazil. This global censorship trend, we're going to see it everywhere else. We see what's happening in France, what's happening in the UK, what's happening in Scotland. We as ADF International are fighting cases of censorship in Mexico, in Finland, in the UK, in Egypt, in Nigeria. All across the globe, there is this huge trend in which censorship is being installed as a norm.
Okay, so we've got a video on this where this was addressed on the mainstream television. Let's have a look at what's been said about this.
Brazil's Supreme Court has upheld a ban on social media company X following owner Elon Musk's actions set to go against the country's law.
Why is this happening, and what does this mean for free speech in the country and across the world? We explore these questions with Jeremy Tedesco. He's a senior counsel at the Alliance Defending Freedom.
Well, sure. In Brazil, there's actually been a fight going on between a justice of the Supreme Court in Brazil, de Moraes, and Elon Musk over the last few months, a little bit over a year, where that justice was put in charge of determining whether misinformation and fake news and other online content was becoming unsafe. The kind of terms we hear in these kind of battles, right? Unsafe for democracy, unsafe for the people of Brazil. And he made that determination that it was, and there were orders that went out to try to shut down the accounts of numerous political dissidents in Brazil. Some of the social media companies, Google, Facebook, and others, complied with those orders, but Elon Musk would not. So he's a champion of free speech. And so that has led to where we are now. Just a few days ago, this justice ordered Elon Musk to identify a legal representative in Brazil. Musk declined to do so, and in response to that, the justice ultimately banned the platform in Brazil. But understand that legal representative, the reason why Musk didn't have any more employees.
So that's interesting. So Elon Musk has essentially said, no, I refuse to play your game. I'm not going to comply with your tyrannous censorship. I'm not going to select a legal representative. I'm going to take my company and get out of your country. And the response from Brazil has been, well, okay, we'll just ban your platform. And so now they're going as far as to say, we'll fine you $9,000 for even skirting the rules and finding a VPN. So, I mean, it's not just Elon Musk or X that they have an issue with. It's the individuals, it's the citizens of Brazil. I mean, first of all, how do they know if someone's using a VPN? But secondly, how can they legally fine people for visiting a foreign website? Oh, Julio, you're muted, by the way. Sorry.
That's the interesting thing, that it is not just Elon Musk, it's all the people in Brazil that's being silenced. The interesting thing here with the legal representative as well is that many of the companies that are left in Brazil, where many of the ex-users left to, because they didn't have Twitter anymore, didn't have X anymore, don't have legal representative either. So it's just a way of using the law against whomever you want, because what you want at the end is not to comply with the law, but a further intention, which in this case is censoring the views of the people that use Twitter to express their views, their convictions, and to express whatever they want.
I find it insane. It's something that we used to see in proper tyrannous dictatorships, and now we're seeing it in Western democracies. And like I say, it's not just in Brazil. We're seeing this around the world, around the West. It was said during the last election in the United States that the Hunter Biden laptop was misinformation or disinformation, whichever information they wanted to claim. That was taken off of social media, off of Twitter, off of Facebook, because they didn't want electoral interference. It turns out it was all true. The laptop was real. The evidence was real. Hunter Biden had been doing some dodgy stuff. He's now faced at least 3 charges, but I'm sure there are many more to come. But voters were not able to be made aware of this. They were censored. The truth was censored. So the actual electoral interference came from the government in power. And this is exactly what we're seeing in Brazil. The government in power is the one who dictates what is misinformation and what's not misinformation. We're seeing the same in the United Kingdom. I've got friends who've been locked up for retweeting or reposting things on Facebook and Twitter that the government has, or the courts have classed as misinformation. Julio, are we going to get to a point where internationally we need to have a recognized idea of what misinformation truly is? And do we have any protections against these Western governments who are deciding for themselves that misinformation is anything that criticizes them or their regimes?
Correct. So ADF International, we have filed a request before the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights, which is the human rights body of the Organization for American States that can step in and should help Brazil. This human rights body acts according on a group of international law treaties, which are called the American Convention of Human Rights, that says expressly what are the protection and freedom of speech. And under these protections, misinformation does not exist, and you should not be able to censor anyone according to the idea or the fact or the concept of misinformation, which by itself is a super vague concept. What can be said? What is misinformation? Who can say it? Who can say it? At the end, it just puts the power on the censor, and that's egregious. So we have filed a request so the commission steps in and do something and intervenes in the protection of freedom of speech in Brazil. And that's what we have to do in other human rights bodies across the globe to help the people when individual countries like Brazil are doing things against international law protections. And yes, this is what we should do.
Okay, so you're doing that, you're petitioning the conventions. You're also doing things on the groundworks level, at the grassroots, aren't you? You're also getting petitions, you're getting people to sign. How's that going?
Yes, correct. So we have a letter that has been signed, an open letter that has been signed with more than 100 free speech champions and over, I think, 10,000 signatures in total now, which is incredible, asking the government, the Brazilian government, to stop what it is doing, the Senate to intervene, the Congress to intervene, and stop what is being done by the Supreme Court, which is terrible. And this is just a way of showing the Brazilian government that people around the globe are watching what they're doing, which is outrageous. It's incredible. It's a Western democracy, and it should behave like a Western democracy, but it is not, because it censors its own people. So at the end, undermines democracy.
And that's the language they like to use a lot, isn't it? That anything that criticizes them is undermining democracy, which is why they're willing and able to censor. And what does democracy mean to the West these days? Julio, I'm thankful that ADF are fighting this fight. It seems that ADF are one of the few that are willing to stand up to these tyrannous regimes. How hopeful are you that the Brazilian government is going to back down on this?
That's a hard question, because you can never know when the rule of law is not being upheld in a country, if the country is really going to back down. But I think that international pressure is mounting. Recently, the U.S. government, the House of Representatives in the U.S., introduced a bill to stop funding NGOs that promote censorship abroad the U.S. And we've seen all the pressure from the open letter we are promoting, and with the push that we're going to give and the Inter-American Commission and other international pressure, we hope this will work, and Brazil at the end will recognize that what they're doing is unlawful.
Okay. I don't know if I'm optimistic. I think what we're probably going to see is more countries following Brazil rather than Brazil going back into the right path. But I'm hopeful that you guys have an impact, and that collective we can all help. Where can people sign this petition if they want to put their name on the letter?
Correct. So you can sign your petition in our website, adfinternational.org. You can find the open letter there. And yes, please sign the letter. Please increase the pressure, international pressure. It's incredible, Calvin, and thank you for what you're doing, because you're helping raise this issue, this egregious violation across the globe with your listeners, with your platform. And this is very important. This is the kind of thing we need to make these violations on freedom of speech known around the world. And you're right. I may be over hopeful. I think at the end we will overcome. But as you said, the next few years, the next years, is going to be a dark period in which we're going to see this censorship trend growing and growing and growing. So we need to fight back. We need to stand firm. And it's very important for everybody to know that we have a right to speak freely. And that's what ADF does. We defend the right of everyone to live and speak the truth.
Preach, brother. I don't think I could say it any better myself. Thank you for that. Julio Prieto, I appreciate all the work you're doing, and I always appreciate ADF. You always have a slot on my show whenever you need it. God bless you, and keep on soldiering on.
Thank you, Calvin. God bless you too.
Thank you for watching my Common Sense Crusade. If you'd like to watch the whole show, you can subscribe to lotuseaters.com for as little as £5 per month, and then you get access to a bank of content as well. My show is 3 p.m. every Thursday. See you there. Deus Vult.